My name is Ellie Simmons, 36 years old, the wife of a man I once believed was the greatest blessing of my life. Tonight, I sat beside him at the lavish party he hosted to celebrate his new position, regional CEO of a major tech corporation in Houston. The crystal lights on the ceiling sparkled, casting light on every fold of my burgundy evening gown, a dress I had chosen after many sleepless nights of consideration. But all my preparation meant nothing once he opened his mouth. "I've gotta be honest with you fellas," Chase muttered, raising his glass of fine wine, his booming voice drowning out the soft background music. "Back in the day, she was just a waitress at a cheap coffee shop near my office. Now look. I turned her into an unpaid assistant, managing my schedule, reminding me of meetings, my mom's birthday, even booking my flights." Laughter echoed from the table. Perfectly made-up faces and tailored suits all turned to look at me, as if I were the joke of the night. I felt their eyes sweep over me, judging me from my neatly pinned hair to the glittering high heels beneath the table. "You're a lucky guy, Chase," one of his colleagues laughed loudly, clapping him on the back. "Not many guys score a wife this versatile." Chase narrowed his eyes at me, his tone a mix of pride and disdain. "My Ellie, she doesn't just cook and do laundry. She runs my whole life. You could call her my personal assistant who doesn't need a paycheck." I tightened my grip on the clutch hidden under the table, feeling my heart pounding faster, but my face kept its gentle smile, my eyes reflecting the practiced calm I'd mastered over 6 years of marriage. No one else in that grand room, except me, realized how each of his words tonight cut through me like a cold blade. "You really are the ideal woman, Ellie," said the wife of one of his business partners, her voice laced with that slow, biting sarcasm only women can detect. "You know how to stand behind your successful man without complaining or asking for anything." I clinked glasses with her, tilting my head slightly, the smile still on my lips, though inside, a storm raged. I glanced around the table at the company's most powerful figures, enjoying Chase's tale of the cafe waitress who now revolved her life around his calendar. My eyes accidentally met Logan's, Chase's younger brother. Logan looked down, avoiding my gaze, as if he too felt ashamed on his brother's behalf. That look chilled me even more. They all knew, but no one said a word. "I'm serious, everyone," Chase laughed louder, the alcohol starting to loosen his restraint. "Who would have thought I'd turn a waitress into my life manager? But I'll tell you, she's better than any assistant I've ever hired." I took a deep breath, the mingled scents of wine and expensive perfume only making it harder to breathe. I gently placed my napkin next to my barely touched plate, and rose under the curious gaze of a few guests. "If you'll excuse me, I need some fresh air," I said softly, but loud enough for the table to hear. Chase looked at me, raised an eyebrow and smirked. "Careful, babe. Don't get lost. If you're not here, I might forget tomorrow's schedule and that would be a problem." Laughter followed me as I left the table. I walked slowly past rows of tables draped in pristine white linen, past the shimmering lights, past the prying eyes, keeping my gaze ahead. I knew behind that hollow smirk was a man who had forgotten the true worth of the woman who had stood by him all these years. I stepped out of the restaurant. The yellow light strung across the Houston street that night felt like cords tightening around my neck. For a moment I wanted to run from it all, but my hand clenched my small clutch, reminding myself, this wasn't the time for weakness. Tonight was just the start of a plan I'd carried in my heart for a long time. After that party, every day became a reminder. Stay sharp, stay watchful. Chase still appeared to be the perfect husband in the eyes of the world, but now I saw him through the eyes of someone hunting for the truth. It started small. When Chase passed out on the leather chair in his office after long nights of drinking with colleagues, I quietly unlocked his phone, capturing screenshots of suspicious messages and calls. I installed a tracking app that sent no alerts. I'd asked Kayla, an old classmate who worked in cybersecurity, to guide me on how to set it up and cover my tracks. On nights when Chase claimed to have sudden meetings, I opened the software. The green dots on the map showed his routes clearly, often stopping at a luxury hotel outside the city. The same places he had said were for business trips or client dinners. I began collecting receipts. Chase had never paid attention to our finances. I would help him check our joint account. And that's when I discovered strange transactions, charges at restaurants we'd never visited, Hotel bills, spa services, expensive gifts sent to unfamiliar addresses. I carefully took screenshots and saved them to a private drive, a drive Chase would never know about. Another time, when Chase rushed out for an urgent meeting, I went to that very hotel he often visited. I didn't step inside, just stood across the street, seeing his shiny black SUV parked at the entrance. Through the clear glass of the lobby, I saw him arm in arm with a tall, slender blonde woman. They laughed and walked straight to the elevator. I didn't feel jealousy. My heart was cold, filled only with determination. I knew without solid proof, Chase would deny everything, as he always had. Late at night, when the house was dark, I sat at my small desk in the corner of the room, arranging the evidence like pieces of a giant puzzle. Receipts, screenshots, GPS logs, bank statements. All saved in multiple places, an external drive hidden in the sewing room drawer, a cloud account under my maiden name, and a USB drive I always kept on me. Chase often mocked me as the woman of lists, because I liked planning out every small task at home. He had no idea that very habit made me far more dangerous in his eyes. One night, when Chase had fallen asleep on the sofa with his phone screen still lit, I discovered a message he had just exchanged with a contact saved as David, partner. The message was clear. I can't wait for the weekend. Find an excuse to leave the house. I've already booked the room. I saved the screenshot and sent it straight to my secret folder. It wasn't the first time, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. I started to suspect that this David wasn't a business partner at all. And then I discovered a separate bank account Chase had opened, an account where money from his company was deposited regularly but never appeared in the reports he showed me. I stumbled upon it while helping him with paperwork for refinancing the house, when a bank consultant accidentally mentioned it in front of me. From that moment on, I dug deeper into my investigation. Every transaction, every destination, every woman who appeared along Chase's routes, I found a way to record it. Quietly, I gathered each piece of truth, like a builder patiently placing brick after brick for the most important construction of my life, the construction that would expose the traitor I once loved. After months of quietly collecting receipts and location logs, I knew financial records and secret photos wouldn't be enough to force Chase to face the truth he tried so hard to bury. I needed something he couldn't deny, something he couldn't explain away with his usual lies. And that something was the truth about the green-eyed boy I had seen at the company party last month. His name was Mason, 5 years old, the son of Owen, Chase's direct boss, a calm and highly respected man in Houston's business world. Mason had a small dimple on his chin exactly like Chase's, and in the moment Mason ran past me, those eyes, that smile made my heart sink. I began arranging the pieces of memory like chess moves in a game I had to win. Chase's business trip to Miami 6 years ago, when he came back unusually worn out. The long phone calls at night, the growing distance between us. And then, 9 months later, Mason was born. I knew I couldn't act without solid proof. And I knew who could help me. Claire. Claire was a lab technician at a major medical center. I had met her by chance during a morning yoga class. We had coffee a few times after practice, harmless chats, that I now needed to leverage. One weekend afternoon I invited Claire over for tea. In my tidy kitchen I poured tea as I casually mentioned, "I'm writing an article for our company's internal magazine about DNA testing technology in healthcare. I heard now even a hair or toothbrush is enough, right, Claire?" Claire laughed. "It's easier than you think. A hair with the root or a bit of saliva is all it takes. The technology's come a long way." I nodded, memorizing every word she said. My plan began at Chase's company's annual picnic. I volunteered to help organize games for the kids, put on an apron with the company logo, blending into the crowd like the perfect wife. As Mason played on the grass, I handed him a cold water bottle. He drank it eagerly and ran off, leaving the bottle on the table. I quickly picked it up and tucked it into the inner pocket of my jacket, where I had a sample bag ready. An hour later, I got a lock of hair stuck on Mason's cap when I helped him straighten it. No one noticed. I was still the sweet, supportive Ellie in their eyes. That night, when Chase was sound asleep, I quietly took his toothbrush and snipped a few strands of hair from the comb he used each morning. I stored everything in a small box, locked it, and placed it neatly in the closet drawer he never looked in. The next day, I messaged Claire to meet at our usual cafe. I set a sealed envelope on the table, my voice calm. "Claire, you mentioned you'd help if I ever needed samples for that article? This is a small piece of research I want checked. Everything's anonymous, of course." Claire didn't suspect a thing and agreed to help. Just a few days later, she messaged me to pick up the results. That afternoon, I sat alone in my car, the lab report in my hand. The numbers spoke the undeniable truth. Chase was Mason's father. I breathed in, steadying myself. It was time to act. That night, when Chase came home from yet another late meeting, I still smiled, asking if he enjoyed dinner. Inside, I had already started counting down the days and hours to my next move. The night of Chase's promotion party took place at one of the most luxurious restaurants in downtown Houston, where crystal chandeliers lit up the carefully made-up faces in crisp suits. I sat beside Chase on a red velvet chair, the smile on my lips as usual. But only I knew. Tonight was no longer just his celebration. Tonight was the end of the lies Chase had built for so many years. I adjusted the strap of my small black clutch. Inside of it, the USB I had prepared. That USB wasn't just evidence. It was the key to unveiling the truth. On it were videos, financial records, the DNA test results I had quietly gathered. All encrypted, all backed up to a separate email account, with 3 draft emails set to send at scheduled times. Chase raised his glass, his laughter mingling with his colleagues, his voice echoing through the elegant space. "You know, everyone, Ellie isn't just my wife. She's my housekeeper, my personal assistant, sometimes even the one who reminds me of my own birthday. Lucky me, marrying the coffee shop waitress who became the perfect family woman." Laughter filled the table again. I clinked glasses, my smile steady out of habit. But inside, I had already started the countdown. When Owen, Chase's boss, stood to raise his glass and begin his speech celebrating the promotion, I gently lowered my head, as if adjusting my shoelace, but in reality I pressed send on the first email from my phone. The speech had barely begun when I could already picture what was about to unfold. And just as I anticipated, within seconds, Owen's phone vibrated in his jacket pocket. He glanced quickly at the screen, his usually calm eyes freezing in place. His voice faltered for a moment, but he forced himself to continue. "Chase, we appreciate all your contributions." Within moments, the room fell into stunned silence as the truth unfolded on their screens. Eyes turned cold, the weight of betrayal sinking in. Chase's nervous laughter faded, replaced by the undeniable verdict written on every face. This time it was the financial evidence, records of shady transactions, hotel invoices, secret expenses. Chase thought no one had noticed. I saw Owen pull out a handkerchief to wipe the sweat from his brow, his eyes fixed on Chase, searching for an explanation. "Chase," Owen said, his voice low and firm, "do you have anything you want to say to us? This has to be some kind of joke." Chase gave a strained laugh, his panicked eyes darting around the room. "Someone's trying to set me up." I sat quietly, not saying a word. The final email, my trump card, was sent just as Chase struggled to defend himself. The DNA test results. I could picture Owen's face as he read the subject line, "The truth about Mason and Chase." Owen's fury needed no words. It showed in the way his hand clenched his wineglass until it shattered. The sound of glass shards falling onto the thick carpet rang out like the final drumbeat of a performance reaching its climax. "You're coming outside with me now," Owen said, his voice hoarse from holding back. Chase trembled as he stood, but as he turned, the stares of everyone in the room felt like an unspoken verdict. I rose, gave Owen a small nod as a final farewell, and walked away from the table. My steps were steady, carrying me forward without hesitation. Outside, the cool night air seemed to lift the weight from my chest. I pulled out my phone and powered it off. Tonight, it was done. The plan I had built over so many months had unfolded down to the minute. The truth was out, and I was free. I left the restaurant, my heels tapping steadily on the stone sidewalk, my heart lighter, as if I had just shed a boulder I'd carried for years. Behind me, inside that lavish banquet hall, The empire Chase had built on lies was crumbling. And I didn't need to look back to see it fall. Sitting in my car watching the city lights blur through the window, everything seemed to slow. I imagined Chase facing the disgusted stares of those who once called him friend, colleague, and Owen, the calm man I had respected, now surely saw it all clearly. In the restaurant, what had been a noisy celebration was now weighed down by silence. Owen left the table first, taking Mason outside. Before he went, he turned back to look at Chase, his eyes cutting through the facade Chase had tried so hard to wear. "You didn't just betray me. You betrayed an innocent child and the woman who once believed in you without question." Owen's footsteps, along with his son's, echoed through the dreadful silence, leaving Chase alone at the table, his face pale, sweat pouring down his forehead. The whispers began to spread. The colleagues who had toasted him now bowed their heads over their phones, quietly deleting the photos they'd posted to social media from the celebration honoring Chase. His reputation vanished, faster than any rumor I'd ever heard. Not long after, the company sent out an official notice. Chase Simmons was terminated for severe ethical violations that damaged the corporation's reputation. Chase's phone rang non-stop, but it wasn't congratulations anymore. It was questions, accusations, and calls from reporters starting to circle for a story. Chase's family wasn't spared from the storm. My in-laws, Mr. and Mrs. Simmons, received copies of all the evidence I sent. When they called me, Mrs. Simmons' voice trembled. "Ellie, we're so sorry. We had no idea Chase would be this awful. Please, don't cut us out of your life." I answered with what sincerity I had left. "I never blamed you. I just needed the truth to be acknowledged." As for Owen, within a day, his wife, Marissa, and their 2 older daughters had moved out of the home they once called theirs. The local paper published a brief line. "The Harrington family confirms they have filed for divorce." The city gossiped, but no one blamed Owen. People only pitied the decent man betrayed by his best friend and wife. While Chase scrambled to salvage what he could, every door seemed to slam shut. Business partners withdrew, speaking engagements were canceled, even his former supporters fell silent, afraid of being dragged down with him. Chase came to me one rainy night as I sat in the small apartment I'd rented. The knocking on my door was frantic, almost desperate. When I opened it, standing there was a man undone, his eyes wild with panic. "Ellie," his voice was raspy, "I've lost everything. You have to believe me, I never meant for it to get this far." I looked straight into the eyes of the man who used to be my husband, feeling no anger anymore, only the cold clarity of someone who now saw the truth. "Chase, I've trusted you too many times. This time, I only trust myself." He broke down in tears, but those tears no longer moved me. I closed the door gently but firmly. That morning, sunlight streamed through the window of the small apartment I had just rented, softly illuminating the last boxes I was preparing to take with me. The house that was once a home was now only a memory. I stood in the empty living room, where the wedding photo Chase and I had chosen with such hope once hung. That photo was gone now, along with the illusions I had once clung to. I rolled my suitcase to the door, my heart free of any lingering attachment. Each step down the long hallway affirmed that I was truly leaving my old life behind. As the door shut behind me, I knew, from today I was no longer the woman standing behind a betrayer, no longer a shadow in someone else's life. In the first days of my new life, I focused entirely on myself. I spent time on things I had once neglected, reading my favorite books, walking in the park, savoring a cup of coffee at a small cafe without rushing. With each passing day, I felt myself coming back to life from the ruins of my old marriage. One afternoon, while I was organizing personal documents to prepare for job applications, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Owen. I was briefly surprised but answered. "Ellie?" His voice was calm but warm. "I know this is a bit sudden, but our company needs capable people. Especially someone with the resolve and integrity you've shown. I've watched how you handled everything. I truly admire you." I paused for a few seconds. The man who was once Chase's boss, who had been a victim of the disaster Chase caused, was now offering me a chance. "I know you helped Chase build many internal management systems," Owen continued. "We need someone like you. If you're interested, the operations manager position is yours." And Ellie? This isn't out of gratitude, it's because I believe in your ability. My heart tightened, not from pain but from the deep emotion of finally having my worth recognized. I'll think about it and get back to you soon, I replied, my voice gentle but confident. The very next morning I arrived at Owen's office in a simple navy mule suit, my face no longer hidden behind heavy makeup like before. The interview was brief. Owen and the board quickly extended a formal offer. I started work during a time when the company was still reeling from the fallout of Chase's scandal. But before long, with the reforms I proposed, departments became orderly again and staff regained their spirit. People no longer looked at me with pity as a betrayed wife. They looked at me with respect for the leader I had become. One afternoon, while clearing out old belongings, I opened a closet and saw rows of Chase's expensive suits still pristine in garment bags. The same suits I had once carefully pressed, once felt proud of whenever he wore them to work. I looked at them, then folded them neatly into a box. The next day, I drove to a nonprofit organization that helps those rebuilding their lives. The manager's eyes widened when I donated dozens of designer suits, each one practically brand new. These suits could help people make a great first impression in their job interviews, I said, feeling a sense of relief. I believe everyone deserves a fresh start. The manager thanked me repeatedly. On the way home, I rolled down the car windows, letting the wind carry away what heaviness remained. Fall in Houston passed with soft breezes carrying the scent of fallen leaves, and I sat in my new office on the 30th floor looking out at the city glowing with evening lights. Through the wide glass window, the tall buildings stood like symbols of the pride I was slowly reclaiming. I had left behind a dark past, stepped out of the shadow of a false marriage, and now I owned every choice in my life. The job at Owen's company wasn't just a career opportunity. It was proof that I had never been and would never be just a woman standing behind a man. Under my leadership, the operations division exceeded its revenue targets in the first quarter since I took over. Colleagues who once looked at me with sympathy now came to me for advice, seeking my guidance on key projects. Beyond the office, new connections formed. I realized I didn't need to chase anyone's approval. Coffee outings with colleagues, networking with other female leaders in the industry, volunteer trips I chose for myself. All of it made me feel alive, not merely existing under labels others imposed. Then one afternoon, as I reviewed reports, my assistant brought in an ivory envelope. The handwriting on it was so familiar I nearly stopped breathing. It was from Chase. I opened it and unfolded a letter written in neat lines. Ellie. I wrote and tore up this letter countless times before I found the courage to send it. I don't expect your forgiveness, because even I can't forgive myself. I destroyed everything. Your trust, my own honor, and the family that once meant everything to me. I only hope you know this. You were never the ordinary woman I foolishly thought. You're more extraordinary than anyone I've ever met. And that's exactly why I lost you. I'm sorry, Ellie. I hope you find happiness, the kind I never gave you. I read it all, folded the paper carefully, and placed it in the small drawer beside my desk. No bitterness, just the quiet closing of a chapter. A piece of memory to set aside so I could move forward without carrying any more weight. That night, I left the office late, walking through the brightly lit streets. Everything seemed more beautiful because I had learned how to walk tall in life without hiding in anyone's shadow. I was no longer the calendar girl living by others' plans and expectations. Now every meeting, every business trip, every part of my life was decided by me. One weekend evening, I joined Owen and his family at a charity event for underprivileged children. Marissa, his former wife, had left the city, starting her own new life. In Owen's eyes, I saw the peace of someone who had found a way to heal. And so had I. I had found my path, truly taken control of my destiny, no longer a shadow on the sidelines of anyone's life. On the way home, I stopped by a lake, the night breeze gently brushing my hair. In that moment I knew, no matter what challenges lay ahead, I would never let anyone else define my worth again. From a woman once dismissed as just a calendar girl living in her husband's shadow, Ellie had risen step by step to take charge of her life. She not only reclaimed her self-worth through her work, but also built new relationships based on respect and trust. The painful past, Chase's betrayals, became the force that helped Ellie grow stronger and freer. Ellie's story reminds us, Only when we believe in ourselves can we write the new worthy chapters of our lives. What do you think of Ellie's journey? Have you ever had to pick yourself up after betrayal? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful and inspiring family stories.